I really love the diaconal call to bring the church to the world and the world to the church, and to open up the doors and be out in the world carrying the gospel. And for me, since the very beginning, that has just resonated.
So, what is a deacon exactly? Because, contrary to popular belief, they're not all want to be priest. Perhaps the best word is servant, as deacons aim to serve God not only in the church, but in the world. We traveled across the diocese, speaking with 5 deacons about their ministries and how they serve their communities. Come along with us for the journey.
We really need to go all the way back to Acts, where the church was growing, the early church, the young church, the baby church was growing by leaps and bounds. And suddenly some people came to the apostles and said, hey, these women over here, these widows, these Greek widows, aren't getting taken care of. They're not getting the distribution they're supposed to get. They're not being fed at the table. And so the apostles said, let's do something about that. And so they suggested that 6 men were to be chosen, and they were. And while they weren't called deacons at the time, it established the model for the diaconate. And that model is servanthood.
Joyce Beshta was an obvious choice when thinking of who to interview. Not only was she a deacon at St. John's in the Wilderness for over 10 years, but she was also one of my formation leaders, playing a vital role in my calling to become a deacon.
The diaconate is the oldest ordained order. It's a full and equal order. And what that means is it's a parallel order with the priesthood. It's not here or here. It's a parallel order. I have loved every minute of being a deacon, every minute of serving in this particular parish. Every minute of being the formation director and then working with Pam Bright as we worked together to do that. It was a joy, absolute and complete joy. And that's what I would pray for every deacon.
Yes.
For that joy and service. And that's what a deacon is. They're an icon of servanthood. At the altar, there's certain things we do and not do and all that. But the idea is that we are an icon of Jesus and an icon of servant leadership.
As part of this life of service, being a deacon is an unpaid position. However, for Joyce, her call to servanthood was never about making an income.
What we're supposed to be is a servant. And so I am glad to be that. You're to be the hands and feet of Jesus, but you're also to be his eyes. And something as simple as just one Sunday morning, I was watching as people came up for communion, and I'm going, oh, she's taking care of her father. He's taking care of his wife. She's taking care of her husband. We had this large number of caregivers. And I'm thinking, what are we doing for them? It's in the parish, granted, it's in the parish. But, so we formed a caregivers group that's still going.
Wow.
And people from outside the church have come to it. So it's not, we are to focus on outside the church, but you got to focus on the inside too. So it's seeing, it's being willing to see what needs to be done.
I had read Life of the Beloved by Henry Nouwen, and it framed God in a way that I had always hoped God was, but was not the dominant message I had heard growing up and living in this context. And so one night I couldn't sleep, and so I got up and started writing, and it was, what if God really is about love? And what if it really is relational, me with God, me with others, God in me to others.
Pam Bright is an active deacon at Church of the Redeemer in Shelby. Here, she helps serve as part of the Shepherd's Table, a weekly food pantry available for those in the area.
In late 2009, two parishioners came to the then rector, who was Valerie Scherer, and said, we need to do something about hunger. And when this parish hall was built, it was designed to be an industrial kitchen and for us to step up to the table with the other uptown churches and help with hunger in our community. But it had never happened because there were wounds. Things happened here that we had to heal and grow and change from. And so really we kind of pinched our noses and jumped. So we do two things, and the reason Wednesdays is it was the day no one was offering either take-home food or hot food. And so we have the reputation for having the best lunch in town because of Marilyn, our cook and our project leader. Marilyn, we cook from scratch. They do occasionally get sandwiches because that's what we have, but it's usually food. It's ribs and chicken and stew and fresh soups and salads and delicious stuff. And we've been operating for 10 years.
I've met so many godly people. And they've instilled a lot in me. I've learned a lot from them because the people that go to this church are really godly people, and they are very nice people, caring people. That's what I like. That's what keeps me coming. They treats me no different from no one else. I'll be here until the end.
May you learn to count more than heads in beds, and try to account for heads lifted up from staring down at the shuffle of despair. When you are tempted by the ease of quantifying showers, soap, and articles of clothing, may you add another row for human dignity which can't be ordered like toilet paper. May you seek forms of reconciliation, order it in triplicate, and dispense it freely, because the kingdom will never be entered into balanced ledgers. In an age when people were reduced to anonymous digits and herded into a game of graceless odds, may you receive the generous gift of being labeled a heretic for holding fast to the doctrine that humans are not problems to be solved on spreadsheets, filed, and then erased from memory. May you come to see that numbers tell stories, but not the truth of lives, that fall, bleed, rise, and breathe in search of wholeness. And may you never forget that hope is a mystery that rarely computes and is often marked by messy figures outside lines of neat columns. I came to faith in high school, and really by reading the Gospels. I don't know how many times I read just the four Gospels, and just sort of fell in love with this figure, Jesus, just like this story, this powerful story. I wanted to be a part of that story. And what happened was I was volunteering across the street from the shelter here. I'll show you, they just turned it into White Duck Taco, which is a restaurant, right? But for years it was just an abandoned building, but before that it was an upholstery shop. And I would come down here, 7th Avenue, and this environment in part of Hendersonville was when I was growing up the rough part of town. If Hendersonville had an inner city, that this was it. All the crime and everything supposedly was down here. So I would come down here, and I was sort of reading the Gospels, seeing people out on the streets, sleeping on the bridge, and I would just take my lunch hour and I would go out and talk to people. I wanted to meet them.
Tim Jones is an active deacon at St. James in Hendersonville and also works down the street at the Hendersonville Rescue Mission, a local homeless shelter. The shelter is dedicated to rehabilitation and helping people find long-term situations.
My life growing up, we were 2 steps from here, being in this situation. You know, I was raised by a single father in a wheelchair. I think that's why it's been in my heart always, you know, to see people as people, not just, you know, homeless people, church people, to see people as people. I hope that what I do inspires and gives people permission to be who God made them to be. Well, first of all, be where they're from. Just be where you're from. You know, try to put it in business, and then be who you are, and let your life say what it's meant to say. Imagine what God can do with that.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Back at Redeemer, we caught up with another deacon whose day job has a big impact on their ministry.
I'm a Child Protective Services social worker with the county, and so that means I investigate child abuse and neglect in our county.
Mm-hmm. And you've been doing that for how long?
About 8 years. Yes.
Wow. Amazing. And you're still smiling.
I love the kids, and I would do anything to make sure the kids are safe and to help make the parents as happy and comfortable as they can be. Mm-hmm. I have always worked with nonprofit type organizations my whole life, and kids have always gotten my attention. It's when I'm around them, I just love their spirit, and to see them as happy as they can be. Some people have had rough childhoods. I know mine was not typical, so I wanted to make sure that other children could have a happy childhood or something as close to it as possible, without fear of anything that could happen to them. So I just really wanted to work with families that were in need. I never thought until a social worker that's now a supervisor said to me, when you knock on a door, you change a life. And I never thought about that, and how much someone hears that you work for the county, and it's like, you're here to take my children. And it's like, no, I'm not here to take your children. I'm just here to make sure they're safe and that you're safe. And I think seeing I go in I try to go in laid back with a tender heart. I'm not judging them. We just had a concern that came in, and we want to make sure everybody's safe. And I try to be kind to them. I try to show them the love that they may not see in the community, or they may have had a bad situation with another social worker at one point, or, you know, and so I try to make them see that my heart is filled with love for them, and that I'm not there to judge them. Mm-hmm. So to be able to take God's love into the community, I try to do that by the way I live. Obviously, I love small things, so my ministry has a lot to do with the environment. I have 2 beehives here at the church that we're trying to get going more successfully. The bees have decided they weren't happy, so this batch left, but we are looking to get more bees here. I'm the type that'll lean down on a rainy day on the sidewalk and pick an earthworm up off of the pavement and put it in the grass so that it doesn't sit there. I just try to save all the little beings. Mm-hmm. Talk to people about the butterflies and, you know, pollinators and how they can help save them. And so it's all about how we can save the creatures, if you will, that depend on us for their survival. Mm-hmm. I know they can make it on their own, but if I can help one, it makes a difference. Mm-hmm. I actually built the hives that are out there by my hand, just to try and get what we needed. And I feel it's important that we try and save them, because there are so many things out there right now, chemicals, and if you look at some of these stores, there's chemicals on the plants that they sell, which are killing the bees. And so it was just important to me to try and help save some of these pollinators.
My master's is in public policy and public finance, so I was doing financial stuff, and started to get more and more disenchanted with the political process and not wanting to continue to have a full career in that area. And so took a job teaching at a college, one class on public policy in the afternoon, 1 day a week, and fell in love with teaching and thought, this is my calling, I love it. And the opportunity to come to Asheville School arrived on my doorstep, and I'm an alum. I went to school here, so it was a quick calling back to this area.
Anthony Scrow is the head of Asheville School, a non-denominational Christian institution. He also serves as a deacon at St. Mary's in Asheville.
When I was going through my diaconal training, a lot of the people who were in training with me in the Diocese of Virginia, where I did my training, were very interested in hospital service and hospice, and I was the only one who was kind of in the youth side. And I had such admiration for them because I just didn't connect in that world. Like, it just wasn't there for me. Right. And they were all like, wow, like, kids, that's so scary to us. And it was one of the best parts of it was that as a deacon, there are so many places and there's so many needs in the world that you can find your niche, be it in the homeless, be it in social justice, be it with the elderly, be it with the dying, be it with infants and mothers, be it with teenage kids, be it in education. Like, there are so many outlets for deacons to be engaged in. And I'm really interested in accessibility, of giving kids accessibility to these kinds of educations and finding really bright kids who might otherwise never have this opportunity, giving them that opportunity, and then also influencing kids who perhaps come to a school like this who have resources to begin to think more deeply and broadly about what they're called to do in the world. My ministry is when those doors open, and going out into the world and bringing the gospel to people, and then bringing people into the church to understand what's going on. One of the things I have started here is a Sunday night chapel service for kids, and it's an optional service because we can't all fit in our chapel right now because of COVID restrictions. And I did those last year, and it's just so wonderful to be able to take a half hour, sit with kids, and talk about Christ's gospel. And it's amazing the number of kids who aren't Christians who come and just say, you know, this is an interesting man, this Jesus, and what he talked about. And Bishop Curry says, if it isn't about love, it isn't about Jesus. And so I spend most of my time talking about love and then ending it by saying, and that's about Jesus.
At the core of this call to servanthood is a call to love. And really, isn't that what we're called to do as Christians? To love our neighbors as ourselves? For me, being a deacon is about following the call to love God with all our actions. I take very seriously the charge that at all times in my life and teaching, I'm to show Christ people that in serving the helpless, they are serving Christ Himself. This call to the diaconate has been the most meaningful call of my life. Maybe it could be yours too.